Hi and welcome to this week's message from the Padres. In what's been a difficult week for many of us, finally finding out our immediate future. Today, as I continue to look into the fruits of the Spirit, those attributes of course that makes lives worth living and living to the full, our subject is kindness. This week I attended the funeral of a very dear friend. Indeed, I got the opportunity to speak about someone who my children always knew as Grandma Margaret. She'd been a lifelong friend of my parents-in-law. She and her husband had met them when both couples were on their honeymoon in Bournemouth, having got married on New Year's Eve 1960. They remained friends from that moment on. Margaret's husband was in the military. He was a bandmaster to the 3rd Battalion of the Parachute Regiment. And later, when he served his time, he went to set up a band for the Sultan of Oman. The reason I'm mentioning Margaret in this talk, who's totally unknown to all of you, is because of her kindness that she showed to us as a family. When Walter, her husband, died, she gave my daughter his piano and his clarinets because she knew how interested Natasha was in music. She went on to do really well with GCSE and A-level music, and then went on to study at the Conservatoire in Birmingham. And now Natasha is a music teacher in Birmingham, passing on her knowledge to the children, something that Margaret encouraged so much in her. We struggled money-wise as well at that time, so Margaret would invite us to her house in Eastbourne when we couldn't afford to have a proper holiday. Her kindness to us was amazing and something that we'll always remember her for. There are, of course, numerous examples of the kindness shown by British troops when on deployment to local populations. In Kenya, I was involved in a project to refurbish an orphanage in which nearly all of my battalion at that time took part. It made such difference to those children and to their helpers. And we can also relate with some justification as British Armed Forces to our attitude towards the local population on Operic and Opteric, as we used an approach to gain hearts and minds, and that saw us stand out in comparison to others. You know, kindness goes a long way, and if we were only kinder to each other, then the world would be a better place. The kindness between people during lockdown was also great to see. I'm very fortunate to have an oversight of all the service family accommodation WhatsApp groups on the patch, and it's been so encouraging to see how everyone has been rallying around, encouraging and helping each other. One of the outstanding points about Jesus was his kindness to both friend and foe. He healed the servant of a Roman centurion. He healed the daughter of Jairus, a Pharisee. Pharisees were the ones who persecuted and condemned him. And of course the Romans put Jesus to death. Yet his kindness extended to his enemies as well. That was linked to his nature, because he was a man who in most instances was very slow to lose his temper, and that allowed him to think through his actions. His whole ministry was aimed at helping others, and because of his compassion for the world, and most importantly, his example of forgiveness. Indeed, some of his final words were, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." He was also very truthful. When the Bible tells us God so loved the world that he gave his only son, he meant it, even though that meant Jesus would go to the cross. Dear Lord, help us to be as kind as we can to those around us, our families, our friends, our colleagues, and people who we come into contact with. Help us to help others whenever we can. We ask that in Jesus' precious name. Amen. God bless you all, and continue to look after each other and to stay safe.